I just recorded a whole video and I forgot to press the record button on Ableton. Anyways, hope y'all enjoyed that clickbait title. I only half think beat making is boring, but let me explain my thought process on this a little bit. So I recently finished making a mixtape album, whatever you want to call it, and I finish these every couple years or so, and after this time with such a commitment and devotion to making the best body of work I feel like I can make, there's always this feeling of freedom of sorts. You're not tied to this project anymore. You can do whatever you want. Working on the same song over and over and over and over to try to polish it. At some point you just I just want to do something new. So in many ways it is freeing, to be done. And in these times, I end up exploring a lot more. I do a lot of things. It's more of a learning experience, so I try to sort of focus on the things I'm weakest on in the craft. So I definitely am weakest on things like synthesis and creating sounds from scratch, where what so yeah, I'm definitely weakest on making things from scratch. That is one of the hardest things for me. I decently proficient on getting a preset and tweaking from there, but learning how to actually do synthesis in a more meaningful way is something that I'm trying to learn. In many ways, I make the joke that this is kind of like a music hoe phase, where you're kind of just exploring with different sounds. You're not committed to anything, and you're just trying to learn. And there's something beautiful about that, something freeing about that. But then also, I am making beats a lot of times with the sounds that I'm making, and in some ways it's great. Some ways I'm making some new things, but oftentimes I kind of come back to similar sounds, or I'm just making beats that can maybe sound all right, but I feel like there isn't much substance there. You're just kind of making something that sounds good, but why? What's the point? What's it all for? I feel like when I'm making actual projects, when I'm making songs, there's some meaning behind it. There's a reason for why I'm doing this in the first place. And I feel like when I'm just making beats, I'm just messing around. And in many ways that can just be a personal fault of sorts, that I'm not okay just vibing, enjoying creating. I have to have some meaning behind it of some sort. But I don't know. Music to me is mostly about the meaning and the message, and how things flow between each other. I find that oftentimes the best songs I write are when I have this very much so in mind. When I'm just making beats to make beats, those beats almost never make it onto anything more serious or any songs. But when I go into it, okay, this is the message I want to relay. I want to talk about this topic. I want to speak on this point of view. I want to, I don't know, make fun of some dumbass who believes something stupid. Um, I go into that crafting sort of from the bottom up with that intention. And I feel like oftentimes that sort of changes the beat that I'm going to make, or that I was going to make, which I think is a little bit more of if you're a producer and an artist, you keep that in mind much more. Whereas if you're an artist and you're just wanting a beat to fit the vibe of a song you're trying to go for, then you just look through their library of beats, and then you choose the one that fits the best, presumably. But I find for me that like the skill that I'm trying to grow in music production as an artist is building these worlds that make sense as they flow from track to track in albums, which is another thing. Like I've always been an albums type of person rather than like a singles type of person, which I know is in many ways counterintuitive to how the industry actually works right now. But at the same time, I don't know. I like what I like, and I find that albums and how songs flow between each other and the whole piece of work and how it, the message it sends. I mean, it does sound kind of snobbish, like this is real art actually, and you guys just like that fake singles stuff. And no, like I understand that, but I guess I kind of believe it. But I mean, regardless, I think that if you're somebody who is a producer, a beat maker, who's making a bunch of beats all the time and is really good, probably way better than me. I feel like I'm not the greatest beat maker, who is excelling at this stuff, but feels like there's something missing. Like, are you feeling like, okay, I made 7 beats today, and they're all right, but like I'm gonna make 7 beats tomorrow, and like it's just sort of like a grind. It's a numbers game of sorts, and you kind of get into this flow of like, okay, why am I even doing this in the first place? I would say my best advice, which I don't even think I'm qualified to give advice, but my best advice would be either one, take more time with each beat that you make. We live in times especially where it's super easy to just like pull up Splice or something and like quickly put a beat together. You can make a beat. Anybody can make. It doesn't matter your experience. You can just go into Splice, just load up, all the samples you want, just throw them together, and you have a beat in like 15 minutes, easy. Way less. You could do it in like 5 minutes. My cat is just like going crazy. He just wants to play all the time. He's like, I don't even know how old he is because we got him at a shelter. They don't really know how old he is, but he's got to be at least like a year and a half, 2 years old. So he's a full adult, but he just like wants to play like a kitten all the time. It's crazy. Anyways, but yeah, you can like take more time making the beat. Like really, maybe play more of the instruments if you have them. Like if you have access to a guitar, use that. Like learn actually how to play the things you want to play and put them down. Spend more time with it. Be more intentional with what you're making. I find that to be oftentimes a good way to get out of the monotony of, okay, I just made like my 9th beat, and like for what? Outside of that, I feel like oftentimes maybe try to create a song yourself, craft a song yourself, be the artist, and see what kind of message you can relay. And even if you don't end up being the artist for the song, it could be a great template for an artist to come down and expand on that in many ways. It can kind of make you feel like you're actually living in a world where you're making things instead of and saying things about the world and living in the world instead of just like constantly just like making stuff and just pooping stuff out, which again, it's so easy to do, and that's also incentivized, right? That's sort of the most bleak part about it, is that it's heavily incentivized to just like make template beats, right? Maybe a little less so now than it was. There's still a market for like, okay, like give me all of these like type beats from like different artists, because ultimately a lot of like artists want to sound like their influences, and one of the best ways you can do that is to get some like emulating type beat, so as a producer it's very incentivized. You'll get more people buying your stuff or listening to your stuff if you're making beats that sound like other people's beats or other people's music, which in many ways also might be sort of like fake attention, because you might think that like, you know, like the numbers are coming in more quickly, you're getting more traction and stuff like that, but realistically, like people are just gonna listen to the original thing most of the time. You know, they're not gonna want that knockoff shit. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been thinking about recently. Trying to enjoy this time of, you know, experimentation and stuff like that, but I'm also trying to get back into writing more and trying to craft things. But yeah, um, outside of that, shameless plug. Go listen to my music if you haven't, and I'll see y'all next time.